I'm Elton, 34 years old, and what should have been a career-defining assignment in Singapore turned into a family nightmare. The downtown Boston condo I'd worked 10 years to afford became ground zero for the worst betrayal I've ever experienced. When my parents and brother tried to steal my home from under me, they had no idea I would fight back so decisively. The smiles on their faces quickly faded when they realized exactly who they were messing with. Before I dive into this story about family betrayal, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had family take advantage of your generosity. Growing up in suburban Massachusetts shaped me in ways I'm still discovering. Our family wasn't wealthy, but we weren't struggling either, just your typical middle-class American household. My father worked as an electrical engineer while my mother taught at the local elementary school. Life seemed normal on the surface, but there was always an undercurrent I couldn't quite name until I was older. My brother Marcus, 6 years younger at 28, was always the golden child. From the moment he was born, my parents treated him differently. When he broke my science fair project the night before judging, they told me I should have kept it out of reach. When he failed classes, it was because teachers didn't understand his learning style. When he totaled his first car, 3 months after getting his license, my parents bought him another one while I was still saving for my first vehicle. I learned early that I had to make my own way. I worked at the local grocery store throughout high school, saving every penny possible. While my friends were at parties, I was either studying or working. College was my ticket out, and I knew my parents wouldn't contribute much. They were already talking about saving for Marcus's education, even though he showed zero interest in academics. Boston University accepted me with a partial scholarship, but I still needed to work 30 hours weekly to cover expenses. I majored in computer science, recognizing the growing tech industry offered the stability I craved. Those 4 years were brutal, working at the campus IT help desk during days, delivering pizzas at night, and somehow managing to graduate with honors. My first IT job wasn't glamorous. Basic technical support at a financial services company. The starting salary seemed enormous compared to my pizza delivery tips, but in Boston, it barely covered a shared apartment with 3 roommates. Still, I had my foot in the door. I worked overtime, whenever possible, took every certification course the company offered, and volunteered for projects nobody wanted. 10 years of grinding followed. I moved up from technical support to network administration to project management. Each promotion came with salary increases that I didn't immediately convert to lifestyle upgrades. While colleagues bought luxury cars or took exotic vacations, I lived in the same shared apartment and drove my 15-year-old Honda. Every extra dollar went into my condo fund. 5 years of aggressive saving finally put me in position to make a down payment. The Boston real estate market was brutal, but I'd done my research. I found a 1-bedroom condo in a converted factory building downtown that needed work but had incredible potential. The bidding war was intense, but my pre-approved financing and willingness to accept the property as is gave me the edge. The day I got the keys, I stood alone in that empty space, with its exposed brick walls and massive windows overlooking the city, and I wept. Not from sadness, but from pure achievement. No one had handed me anything. Every square inch represented countless hours of hard work. Over the next 2 years, I transformed the space. I learned basic plumbing and electrical work from YouTube videos to save money. I installed custom shelving for my growing vinyl record collection, a passion I'd developed during college when I'd occasionally splurge on a rare find. The kitchen renovation took 6 months of weekends, but the result was a chef's dream with butcher block countertops I'd sanded and sealed myself. The home office became my masterpiece. Custom built-in desks accommodated my 3-monitor setup. The lighting system I designed eliminated screen glare regardless of the time of day. Acoustic panels kept video calls professional without echoing. This wasn't just a place to sleep, it was the physical manifestation of my journey from that kid delivering pizzas to a respected IT project manager. Throughout my place were mementos from business trips, a hand-carved chess set from Montreal, black and white photographs from Chicago, a Japanese tea set from a Tokyo conference. Each item told part of my story, curated carefully and displayed proudly. When the Singapore opportunity appeared, I was initially reluctant. 6 months away from my sanctuary seemed daunting. The project involved implementing a new cloud infrastructure for our Asia-Pacific division. Exactly the kind of high-profile work that could put me in line for senior management. My boss made it clear that turning it down would be career suicide. I researched property management companies to handle short-term rental of my condo while away. The income would offset the Singapore apartment costs, and professional management would ensure everything remained in order. I was 3 days from signing with Urban Boston Properties when my parents called. "We heard about your assignment from Aunt Jeannie," my mother said during our monthly call. "Such a wonderful opportunity." When I mentioned my rental plans, my father immediately interrupted. "That's ridiculous. Why pay some company when Marcus could watch your place? He's looking for a new apartment anyway." Red flags immediately went up. Marcus had been evicted twice that I knew of. His housekeeping standards could generously be described as post-apocalyptic. But my father continued painting it as a perfect solution. Marcus would have a nice place to stay. My condo would be occupied rather than sitting empty, and I wouldn't have to pay management fees. "I don't know," I hesitated. "My place is really important to me." "Don't you trust your own brother?" My mother's voice carried that familiar guilt-inducing tone. "It's not about trust. It's about responsibility. The condo is everything I've worked for." "Marcus has matured a lot," my father insisted. "He's been at the same job for almost 8 months now. This could really help him get stabilized." After 3 more calls and increasing pressure, I reluctantly agreed. I created a detailed binder with building rules, maintenance, contacts, care instructions for my plants, and clear expectations. No parties. No additional residents. No alterations to the space. Marcus nodded earnestly at everything as I handed him the spare key. "I really appreciate this, bro," he said. "I won't let you down." Something in my gut twisted when I locked my door that last time, but I pushed the feeling aside. Maybe my parents were right. Maybe this could be a turning point for Marcus. Maybe this act of trust could begin healing our strained relationship. I was wrong on all counts. Singapore was transformational from the moment I landed. The efficient infrastructure, the blending of ultramodern architecture with traditional elements, the humidity that felt like walking through warm soup, everything announced I wasn't in Boston anymore. The corporate apartment they arranged was sleek and minimalist, totally unlike my warmly personal condo, but it served its purpose. The project team comprised professionals from 7 countries. Cultural differences created initial communication challenges, but that's exactly why they'd sent me. My specialty was bridging technical and interpersonal gaps. 14-hour days became normal as we established trust and workflow patterns. By the end of month 1, we were ahead of schedule and under budget. I initially called Marcus weekly, but the 13-hour time difference made coordination difficult. Our conversations grew shorter and less frequent. When we did connect, his updates about my condo were vague. "Everything's good, man. Your plants are alive. Building's still standing." When I asked specific questions about maintenance issues, had he changed the air filter? Had the bathroom sink drain started running slow again? He'd get irritated. "Dude, I'm handling it. Don't you trust me at all?" Video calls were particularly strange. Marcus always positioned the camera so I could see very little of the apartment, usually just a blank wall behind him. Once I noticed an unfamiliar painting that definitely wasn't mine. When questioned, he quickly explained it was just leaning there temporarily for a friend. 3 months in, Mrs. Watkins from the condo board emailed me directly. "I've tried reaching your brother about the noise complaints, but he's not responding. If these parties continue, the board will need to take action." I immediately called Marcus, who dismissed it as one small get-together that got slightly out of hand. He promised it wouldn't happen again. When I suggested doing a virtual walkthrough of the condo to check on things, he claimed his phone camera was broken and borrowed some excuse about poor Wi-Fi. A month later, my neighbor Tim messaged me on Facebook. "Hey man, not trying to cause trouble, but there's been a lot of different people coming and going from your place. Wanted to make sure you knew." When confronted, Marcus explained they were just friends helping him with a work project. The explanations kept coming, and each one stretched credulity further than the last. Deep down, I knew something was wrong, but addressing it properly from 13,000 miles away seemed impossible. I told myself I'd handle whatever needed fixing when I returned. The Singapore project proceeded flawlessly. My team exceeded every milestone, and the client was so impressed, they began discussions about additional work. What had been scheduled as a 6-month assignment looked ready to wrap up several weeks early. Rather than announcing my early return, I decided to surprise everyone. 22 hours of travel left me exhausted but eager to sleep in my own bed. The taxi dropped me at my building around 11 on a Tuesday night. The doorman's expression when he saw me was puzzling, a mixture of recognition, surprise, and something that looked strangely like guilt. "Mr. Walsh, we weren't expecting you back yet." "Finished early," I explained, pulling my luggage toward the elevator. "Perhaps I should call up first," he suggested awkwardly. "No need. I want to surprise my brother." The elevator ride to the 7th floor felt interminable. The hallway carpet appeared stained in places I didn't remember. A distinctive smell of marijuana hung in the air, something strictly prohibited by building rules. I inserted my key into my door, but the lock didn't engage. It had been changed. I knocked forcefully. After a long pause and some muffled voices, the door opened slightly. A woman I'd never seen before peered out. "Can I help you?" she asked suspiciously. "This is my apartment," I stated flatly. "Who are you?" More voices inside, hurried movements. Finally, Marcus appeared, his expression cycling rapidly through shock, guilt, and something resembling defiance. "Elton, you're early." He attempted nonchalance that failed spectacularly. "Let me in, Marcus." He opened the door reluctantly, and I stepped into what used to be my home. The shock nearly brought me to my knees. My carefully arranged furniture had been rearranged or replaced entirely. The custom bookshelves now held gaming consoles and empty beer bottles instead of my vinyl collection. The kitchen island was covered with unwashed dishes and takeout containers. The air smelled of cigarettes and neglect. 3 strangers stood awkwardly in my living room, the woman who'd answered the door, plus 2 men who looked to be around Marcus's age. One was wearing my vintage Rolling Stones t-shirt. "What the hell is going on?" I demanded, my voice eerily calm, despite the rage building inside me. "Look, I can explain." Marcus started. "These are my roommates, Kelly, Jordan, and Dwayne." Roommates. The word felt like acid in my mouth. I never agreed to roommates. It just sort of happened, you know. They needed places to stay, and this place is way too big for just one person. I moved through the apartment in a daze of horror. My bedroom had been taken over by Marcus, my belongings shoved into closets or simply removed. The second bedroom that had been my office was now occupied by Kelly, who decorated it with tapestries and string lights attached directly to the walls with thumbtacks and tape. The open loft space above the living room that had been my reading nook now contained a mattress on the floor where Jordan apparently slept. Dwayne had constructed some sort of partitioned space in the dining area using wardrobes and curtains. My record collection was half gone. The specialized record player I'd saved for months to buy was nowhere to be seen. The Japanese tea set was missing pieces. The chess set had cigarette burns on it. My custom computer setup had been disassembled with parts either missing or repurposed into other systems. "Where's all my stuff?" I asked, my voice hollow. "We had to make some space," Marcus shrugged. "Some things are in storage." "What storage?" "Where?" "At Mom and Dad's mostly. Some stuff might have been sold, but only things you probably didn't want anymore anyway." That's when I noticed the walls. Freshly painted in colors I would never choose. The exposed brick I'd carefully restored had been covered in white paint on one entire wall. The custom kitchen backsplash had been replaced with cheap peel and stick tiles. "You've been renovating my apartment." The calm was gone now, replaced by barely contained fury. "Improving it," Marcus corrected. "The place needed updating." I turned to the roommates. "How much rent have you been paying him?" They exchanged uncomfortable glances. $800 a month each, Kelly finally admitted. Plus utilities. $2,400 monthly plus utilities. From MY apartment. For 6 months. "How long is your lease?" I asked. Another uncomfortable silence. Marcus said we could stay through the end of the year at least. Jordan volunteered. We signed agreements and everything. I whirled back to Marcus. You created fake leases. You have no authority to rent out my property. Don't be so uptight, Marcus scoffed. I've been taking care of your precious condo and making sure it generated income instead of sitting empty. By stealing it and renting it out illegally, I was shouting now. I wouldn't call it stealing, he protested. More like efficient use of resources. Besides, Mom and Dad know all about it. They think it's a great arrangement. Those words hit me like a physical blow. They know. About all of this, I gestured around at the destruction of my home. Of course. They helped move some of your stuff to their garage. They've been collecting a portion of the rent too to cover their trouble. It was Dad's idea to turn it into a proper income property. I couldn't process what I was hearing. My family had conspired behind my back to essentially appropriate my home. Before I could respond, Marcus pulled out his phone. I should call them actually. They can explain everything better than I can. Marcus stepped into the kitchen to make his call, leaving me standing amidst strangers in the ruins of my home. The roommates shifted uncomfortably, gathering their belongings as if preparing for a quick exit. Smart move on their part. You should all start packing, I informed them flatly. You'll need to be out by tomorrow. But our lease, Kelly began, is completely fraudulent, I finished for her. My brother had no legal right to rent to you. I'm the sole owner, and I never authorized anyone to live here besides him temporarily. 40 minutes later, my parents arrived. They entered without knocking, using what appeared to be their own key to my apartment. The familiar comfort I usually felt at seeing them was noticeably absent, replaced by a growing sense of betrayal. Elton. My mother embraced me, as if nothing were wrong. What a wonderful surprise. We weren't expecting you back for weeks. My father clapped my shoulder. The place looks great, doesn't it? Much more functional now. I stepped away from them. What have you done? Now don't start with the dramatics, my father said dismissively. Everything's fine. Fine. My home has been destroyed. My possessions are missing. There are strangers living here. My mother's expression turned placating. Honey, nothing's destroyed. We've just made better use of the space. Marcus needed roommates to help with expenses. Expenses. He's been collecting $2,400 monthly in rent from my property. And that money has been very helpful, my father interjected. Some of it went toward the improvements here, and some helped us with our situation. What situation? My parents exchanged glances. We didn't want to worry you while you were away on your important project. My mother began hesitantly. But your father was laid off 6 months ago. His company outsourced the entire engineering department, Marcus added, as if I'd asked him. We've been struggling, my father admitted. Marcus's contribution from the rental income has kept us afloat. I stared at them, trying to process this new information. So you decided to steal my condo and rent it out. Nobody stole anything, my father's voice hardened. We're family. Family helps each other. Marcus needed a place, we needed income, and you weren't using this space. I was away for work. That doesn't make my home up for grabs. Don't be so selfish, my mother scolded. Your brother has finally found some stability. His roommates are good people with steady jobs. They've signed leases through December. Those leases are worthless. Actually, my father pulled papers from his jacket pocket. Since we're all co-signed on your mortgage, we had every right to authorize these subleases. Another shock. You're not co-signed on my mortgage. I bought this place entirely on my own. My father's expression changed slightly. Well, you needed our help establishing credit when you were younger. Remember those credit cards we added you to? That connection gives us certain rights. It was complete nonsense, but stated with such conviction that for a moment I questioned my own understanding. That's not how property law works, I said firmly. My name is the only one on the deed and mortgage. Regardless, my mother cut in. Marcus and his roommates have established residency here. You can't just throw them out. Watch me, I replied coldly. Now, son, my father's tone turned conciliatory. Let's discuss this reasonably. You're doing very well in your career. This Singapore project will probably lead to a promotion. Marcus is just getting on his feet. So the fair thing would be for you to find another place and let them continue living here. You can afford it. The audacity of the suggestion left me momentarily speechless. They wanted me to surrender my home to my brother and 3 strangers simply because I could afford it. That's never going to happen, I finally managed. Then you're not the son we raised. My father's voice turned cold. We raised you to care about family. Marcus needs this place more than you do. What about what I need? What about respecting my property? Property is just stuff, my mother waved dismissively. Family is what matters. If you insist on evicting your brother, you'll be turning your back on this family. I'm not the one who betrayed family trust, I pointed out. My father stepped closer, his voice lowering. Here's how this is going to work. Marcus and his roommates will continue living here through their lease terms. You'll find someplace else to stay. When their leases end, we can discuss next steps. If that's not acceptable to you, then you're choosing possessions over family, and we'll have to reconsider our relationship. The threat was unmistakable. Let them keep my home or be cast out of the family. This is my home, I stated firmly. I want everyone out within 24 hours. Then you're no son of mine, my father declared dramatically. Don't come crying to us when you realize what you've thrown away. I want my key back. I extended my hand. We're keeping it, my mother replied. You're making a rash decision, and you'll change your mind. I doubt that very much, I said. After they left, with Marcus reluctantly agreeing to return the next day to collect his things, I surveyed the damage more thoroughly. Water damage under the kitchen sink had warped the custom cabinets. Someone had spilled something acidic on the butcher block countertop, leaving permanent scars. The hardwood floors had cigarette burns and deep scratches. The bathroom renovation had been left half-finished with exposed pipes and missing tiles. Beyond the physical damage was the violation. Every corner of my sanctuary had been invaded and altered. Nothing remained untouched. I couldn't even sleep in my own bed. The mattress was stained with what I hoped was just wine, and the sheets were unfamiliar. I booked a hotel room nearby and sat on the pristine bed, trying to make sense of what had happened. My family had conspired against me. They had invaded my home, sold my possessions, and then expected me to simply accept it. When I refused, they threatened to disown me. The pain was physical, a crushing weight on my chest. I'd always known I wasn't the favorite child, but I never imagined they would go this far. I hadn't just lost my home. I'd lost the illusion that my family cared about me at all. I allowed myself one night to grieve, one night to feel the hurt, the betrayal, the shock. Then I dried my eyes, straightened my spine, and started making calls. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. First thing the next morning, I contacted Patricia Winters, a property attorney recommended by a colleague. Her earliest available appointment was 3 days out, but after hearing a brief summary of my situation, she squeezed me in that afternoon. Her office exuded competence, organized, professional, and calming. I brought every document related to my condo purchase, including the deed mortgage statements and condo association bylaws. Let me be absolutely clear, Patricia said, after reviewing my paperwork. Your parents and brother have no legal standing whatsoever. You are the sole owner of this property. The fake leases they created for these roommates are completely invalid. So I can just evict everyone. Yes and no. Massachusetts tenant law gets complicated once someone has established residency, even if they did so fraudulently. The good news is that as unauthorized subletters in a condo with clear rules against subletting, we have stronger grounds for immediate action. Over the next 2 hours, we crafted a strategic plan. Patricia would prepare formal notices of unauthorized occupancy for each person with a 72-hour vacate requirement. Simultaneously, she would file for an emergency hearing based on the unauthorized alterations and damage to the property. What about my missing possessions? I asked. Document everything, she advised. Take detailed photographs of the current condition. Create an inventory of missing or damaged items with approximate values. We'll include that in both civil claims and potentially file a separate police report for theft. Patricia also suggested hiring a private investigator to document the rental arrangement my brother had established. If he's been collecting rent without reporting the income, that creates additional legal exposure for him. The investigator Patricia recommended Frank Delaney was a former Boston police detective with a no-nonsense attitude. Within 48 hours, he'd uncovered something I hadn't even considered. Marcus had been listing my condo on vacation rental sites, rotating between Airbnb, VRBO, and direct bookings through Craigslist. By my conservative estimate, Frank reported he's taken in close to $40,000 over 6 months between the roommates and short-term rentals. The evidence Frank gathered was damning. Screenshots of the listings, bank deposit records, text messages between Marcus and various guests, and even online reviews mentioning him by name. Several complaints noted unauthorized parties and excessive noise. While the legal wheels turned, I focused on immediate security concerns. I contacted a locksmith certified by my condo association and had all locks changed, including the deadbolt and building access fob. The building manager, Stephen Liu, was sympathetic once I explained the situation and showed him my deed. "We've had numerous complaints about noise and unauthorized guests," Stephen confirmed. "The board was considering action against you as the owner, but this explains a lot." Stephen arranged for security footage from the lobby to be preserved, showing the constant flow of strangers entering and exiting the building, often with luggage. He also provided copies of violation notices that had been sent to my unit over the past months. Noise complaints, improper trash disposal, smoking in common areas, and damage to the elevator from moving furniture. "The repair costs for common areas have been added to your monthly association fees," he explained. "But with this evidence of unauthorized use, we can potentially redirect those charges." Armed with mounting evidence, I returned to my condo the next morning, accompanied by 2 security guards. Stephen had arranged the locksmith who'd changed the locks and a professional photographer to document everything. Marcus and one roommate were waiting outside, having discovered their keys no longer worked. "This is illegal," Marcus shouted when he saw me. "You can't lock us out." I handed him the formal notices Patricia had prepared. "This is notice of unauthorized occupancy. You have 72 hours to remove your personal belongings. You can't do this. We have rights." "You have the right to collect your things under supervision," I replied calmly. "After that, any remaining items will be considered abandoned." The security guards ensured things remained civil, as Marcus and his roommate gathered essentials. I informed them they could return during specific hours over the next 3 days to collect everything else. Inside, the photographer meticulously documented every room, every item of damage, every unauthorized alteration. The images were time-stamped and geotagged, creating an unimpeachable record of the condition. I discovered additional damage that had been hidden during my initial inspection, and the quote, "water damage," in the guest bathroom, had spread to the subfloor electrical outlets, had been overloaded and scorched, and someone had punched holes in walls that had then been hastily patched and painted over. The most disturbing discovery came when I checked the building's storage unit assigned to my condo. Instead of containing my carefully packed belongings as Marcus had claimed, it was filled with furniture and items I'd never seen before, presumably from one of the roommates, or left by vacation renters. My possessions were simply gone. Over the next week, I executed each step of our plan with methodical precision. I filed an insurance claim for the property damage, providing the detailed documentation. I reported the theft of my personal property to the police, complete with photographs and estimated values. I contacted the vacation rental platforms to report the fraudulent listings, which promptly shut down Marcus's accounts and provided records of his rental income. The building management and condo board, now understanding that I had been victimized rather than complicit, became valuable allies. They provided records of all complaints, security footage, and maintenance reports that further supported my case. Several neighbors came forward with their own documentation, videos of parties' complaints they'd filed, and instances of property damage in common areas. Perhaps most satisfying was the discovery that Marcus had never registered as a short-term rental operator with the city of Boston, nor had he collected or remitted the required occupancy taxes. An anonymous tip, which may or may not have come from me to the city tax authority, triggered an automatic investigation. The financial picture grew clearer and more damning by the day. Based on Frank's investigation, Marcus had collected approximately $7,200 from each of the 3 roommates over 6 months. roughly $20,000 from short-term vacation rentals, all while causing approximately $35,000 in property damage. When Patricia presented this evidence to my parents and Marcus, along with formal legal notices, their bravado cracked. They had never expected me to fight back so comprehensively. They certainly never anticipated the potential financial and legal consequences they now faced. My parents' initial response was predictably hostile. My father left a voicemail that consisted primarily of threats and obscenities questioning my manhood and loyalty. My mother's approach was more insidious, tearful messages about family bonds and forgiveness, punctuated with subtle guilt trips about my father's unemployment and Marcus's fragile progress. "How could you do this to your own brother?" she sobbed in one message. "He made some mistakes, but calling the police. Filing lawsuits. This isn't how family treats family." What neither seemed to grasp was that they had already shattered any normal concept of family loyalty. Each message only strengthened my resolve. The extended family battlefield activated next. Aunt Jeannie called to tell me I was breaking my mother's heart. Uncle Robert texted that I'd always been too full of myself. Cousin Stephen, who I'd helped move across country just last year, posted vague but pointed comments on social media about blood being thicker than water and forgiving those who wrong you. What my parents didn't know was that I'd anticipated this tactic. After our confrontation, I had sent a factual, unemotional email to key family members detailing exactly what had occurred, complete with photographs of the damage and documentation of the financial theft. I didn't try to persuade anyone or ask for support. I simply presented the facts and explained that I was pursuing legal remedies. The response was illuminating. Several relatives who'd initially sided with my parents went conspicuously silent after receiving my email. Others reached out privately to express shock and support. "I had no idea it was this bad," my cousin Rachel wrote. "Your mom told everyone you were overreacting about some minor damage from a small party. These photos tell a completely different story." My grandmother, my father's mother, and family matriarch at 84 called me directly. "Your father didn't raise you to be a doormat," she said firmly. "You worked hard for that home. Don't let anyone take it from you, not even family. Especially not family." Marcus's narrative shifted constantly. In text messages, to me he fluctuated between defiance, "You're making a huge mistake," victimhood, "I was just trying to survive," and occasional glimpses of recognition, "Things got out of hand." To family members, he portrayed himself as blindsided and persecuted. To his friends, according to social media, he was the hero standing up to his privileged brother who doesn't understand real-life struggles. The most unexpected ally emerged when Kelly, one of the roommates, contacted me directly. After the initial shock wore off, she realized how Marcus had manipulated everyone. "He told us you knew all about the arrangement," she explained during our meeting at a local coffee shop. "He showed us text messages from you approving everything." Those texts, she now realized, had been faked. Marcus had created a conversation with a contact labeled Bro Elton in his phone, likely just himself, using a different number. "He also took much more money than we realized," Kelly continued. "We each paid $800 for rent, plus $400 for utilities and building fees. But he kept increasing these random additional charges. Special assessment fees, insurance riders, maintenance surcharges. We were each paying close to $1,500 monthly by the end." Kelly provided her bank statements showing these payments, adding to our growing evidence file. She also confirmed something the private investigator had suspected: my parents had been regularly collecting a portion of this money. They would come by at least twice a month, she recalled. Marcus would hand them an envelope of cash. They called it their management fee, for helping arrange everything. Most valuable was Kelly's information about my missing possessions. Some items had indeed been moved to my parents' garage, but many others had been sold by Marcus through various online marketplaces. She provided dates, items, and approximate amounts for several sales she'd witnessed, including my record collection and specialized audio equipment. "I thought you'd upgraded and left the old stuff behind," she said, clearly embarrassed. "Marcus told us you were living large in Singapore and didn't want any of this starter apartment furniture anymore." As our legal case strengthened, my parents' tactics escalated. My father contacted my employer, speaking to my direct supervisor under the guise of concern that I was experiencing mental health issues that might affect my work performance. Fortunately, my boss recognized the attempted sabotage for what it was. "Your father seemed determined to create problems for you professionally," she told me. "He implied you'd been acting erratically and making concerning statements. I assured him your work continues to be exceptional and suggested he direct any genuine concerns through appropriate channels." The lowest blow came when my mother called my ex-girlfriend Jessica, whom I dated seriously for 2 years, before breaking up amicably when she took a job in California. My mother apparently hoped Jessica would contact me to talk sense into me, or provide damaging personal information they could use against me. Instead, Jessica immediately called to warn me. "Your mom was fishing for anything she could use against you," Jessica reported. "She wanted to know if you had anger issues, drinking problems, financial troubles, anything to make you look unstable. When I said you were always stable and responsible, she got frustrated and hung up." Each of these attempts backfired, strengthening my legal position by demonstrating a pattern of harassment and defamation. Patricia added each incident to our growing file. The turning point came unexpectedly. One Tuesday morning, I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. The caller identified himself as Trevor Reynolds, Marcus's former roommate from 2 years ago. "I saw your brother's posts about your unfair eviction and recognized the apartment from pictures," Trevor explained. "I've been there for parties. Thing is, Marcus screwed me over too. Took my security deposit, sold my stuff when I was out of town, the whole deal. When I saw him playing victim about your place, I had to reach out." Trevor described a pattern of behavior identical to what I'd experienced. Marcus taking advantage of people's trust, selling belongings, creating fake documentation, and manipulating situations to appear as the victim when confronted. He provided dates, names of other victims, and screenshots of conversations that established a years-long pattern. "I'm willing to provide a sworn statement if it helps," Trevor offered. "Several other guys he's ripped off probably would too. We've got a whole group chat about it." With Trevor's information, Patricia believed we had grounds to escalate our civil claims to include a pattern of fraudulent behavior. We also potentially had grounds for criminal charges beyond simple theft. "The consistent pattern changes things," she explained. "This wasn't a one-time family dispute that got out of hand. This was a calculated scheme that he's executed multiple times." The final blow to my family's resistance came when the city tax authority sent formal notices regarding the unpaid occupancy taxes from the short-term rentals. Because my parents had received a portion of the illegal rental income and had actively participated in the scheme, they received notices as well. The potential tax liability penalties and interest represented a significant financial threat, particularly given my father's unemployment. The possibility of fraud charges likely contributed to their sudden change in approach. My father called on a Thursday evening, his voice noticeably lacking its usual commanding tone. "Maybe we should discuss a way to resolve this situation," he said stiffly. "This legal back and forth isn't good for anyone." Translation: they'd finally realized how much trouble they were in. With my family finally ready to negotiate, Patricia arranged a formal mediation session. We met at her office, myself and Patricia. On one side of the conference table, my parents and Marcus, with their hastily retained attorney, on the other. The power dynamic had shifted dramatically from our last encounter in my damaged condo. Patricia presented our settlement terms clearly, and without room for negotiation. Mr. Walsh requires full financial restitution for all documented damages estimated at $35,000. Additionally, compensation for stolen or sold personal property valued at approximately $20,000. Marcus must acknowledge in writing that he had no legal right to rent out the property or sell any possessions. Your clients must agree to a no-contact order for a minimum of 6 months, after which any communication must be approved in advance by Mr. Walsh. My father started to protest, but their attorney placed a restraining hand on his arm. After reviewing the extensive evidence we'd compiled, the lawyer had likely advised them that fighting would only make things worse. Furthermore, Patricia continued, "We require acknowledgement that Mr. Walsh is the sole legal owner of the condominium, with exclusive rights to occupy and use it. Any keys or access methods must be returned immediately. Before any future contact can be considered, all parties must complete family therapy with a licensed professional with costs to be divided equally. My parents looked shocked at the therapy requirement. Their attorney leaned over to whisper something to them, and my father's face flushed with anger. However, he remained silent. Finally, Patricia concluded, Marcus must complete a financial responsibility course and provide proof of completion before any contact can resume. This is extortion, my father finally burst out, unable to contain himself. No, Mr. Walsh. Patricia replied calmly. This is consequence management. The alternative is pursuing this matter through the courts, where the financial penalties would likely be significantly higher and could potentially include criminal charges. Their attorney nodded, almost imperceptibly confirming the accuracy of Patricia's assessment. We'll need time to consider these terms, the lawyer said. You have 48 hours, Patricia responded. After that, we proceed with filing all pending legal actions. When they left, my mother couldn't even look at me. Marcus stared at the floor. Only my father made brief eye contact, his expression, a mixture of anger and something I'd never seen from him before, fear. The acceptance of our terms came the next day via their attorney. My parents would pay the full amount for damages and stolen property. Marcus signed the acknowledgement of wrongdoing. All keys were returned. They agreed to the no-contact period and therapy requirement. With the legal battle essentially won, I turned my attention to reclaiming and restoring my home. The insurance claim covered most of the structural damage, but countless personal touches needed to be recreated. I hired professionals to handle the major repairs, plumbing issues, electrical damage, flooring restoration. The walls returned to their original colors, the exposed brick carefully restored to its former glory. Replacing my possessions proved more challenging. The vinyl records had been part of my life for over a decade, each album connected to specific memories. The furniture had been selected piece by piece as my budget allowed. The mementos from travels couldn't be replicated. Yet the process of rebuilding became unexpectedly therapeutic. Each decision about replacement items required reflection about what truly mattered to me. Some things I recreated, exactly others I took in new directions. The home office emerged more functional than before. The kitchen now included features I'd always wanted but previously couldn't afford. Friends showed up with housewarming gifts to help rebuild my collection. Records they thought I'd appreciate, books they knew I'd enjoy, artwork that matched my aesthetic. My colleague David, an amateur woodworker, crafted a new chess set to replace the damaged one. My neighbor Tim helped install an upgraded security system with cameras and advanced electronic locks. Throughout the renovation, I kept everyone who'd supported me updated with photos and progress reports. My grandmother visited once the major work was complete, inspecting everything with a critical eye before pronouncing it much better than before. Sometimes she said, while we shared tea in my renewed kitchen, you have to lose something to realize what you actually want to rebuild. The 6-month no-contact period provided space to process my feelings about my family. Through therapy, I came to understand that the Condo incident wasn't an aberration, but the culmination of lifelong patterns. My parents had always favored Marcus, always expected me to sacrifice for him, always dismissed my accomplishments while celebrating his minimal efforts. The therapist helped me recognize that while I couldn't change my family, I could establish boundaries and decide what relationship, if any, I wanted with them moving forward. I worked through the grief of losing the family I thought I had and began embracing the chosen family of friends who'd supported me unconditionally. 5 months after the settlement, my mother sent a letter through Patricia. Unlike her previous communications, this one acknowledged the harm they'd caused without justification or excuse. I've been attending therapy sessions as required, she wrote. The therapist has helped me recognize how unfairly we've treated you throughout your life. The Condo situation was inexcusable, but it wasn't isolated. We've consistently asked you to accommodate Marcus at your expense, never acknowledging how wrong that was. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know I understand what we did, and I'm truly sorry. My father sent a much shorter note 2 weeks later. His acknowledgement was more grudging but still represented progress. I was wrong, he wrote simply. The therapist says, I've favored Marcus because he reminds me of myself at his age. Unfocused, struggling. You've always been capable and independent, so I didn't think you needed support. I see now how backward that thinking was. I'm sorry. Marcus's communication came last just before the 6-month mark. His letters showed genuine reflection. I've completed the financial responsibility course, he wrote. But more importantly, I've been working with a therapist about my pattern of taking advantage of people. I've reached out to others. I've hurt to make amends. I took your property and possessions because I was jealous of everything you've accomplished. I told myself you owed me because things came easier to you, but that was a lie I used to justify stealing from you. I'm working on becoming someone worthy of eventually rebuilding a relationship with you, whether that happens or not. When the no-contact period ended, I agreed to a family session with the therapist. We met on neutral ground, everyone noticeably nervous. The conversation was stilted at first, but gradually became more authentic. No magical reconciliation occurred. Too much damage had been done for that, but we established tentative parameters for moving forward. My parents would respect my boundaries completely. No more unannounced visits. No pressure to help Marcus. No dismissing my feelings or experiences. Marcus and I would maintain distance, but could attend the same family events without drama. He had found stable employment and his own apartment, apparently serious about changing his patterns. The condo, now fully restored and personalized, had transcended its original meaning. It was no longer just a symbol of my hard work and independence. It now represented my ability to stand up for myself, to rebuild after devastation, and to create boundaries that protected what mattered to me. The violation of my space had been traumatic, but my response to it had transformed me. I was no longer the person who would reluctantly give in to family pressure. I had discovered a stronger version of myself, one who could fight back effectively when necessary, and who valued his own needs alongside others. Sometimes the most painful betrayals lead to the most important growth. The year following the settlement brought unexpected growth in ways I couldn't have anticipated. Weekly therapy sessions helped me navigate the complex emotions of family betrayal. Initially, I focused exclusively on anger and hurt justifiable reactions to what had happened. My therapist gently guided me toward examining deeper patterns. Your family's behavior was inexcusable, she emphasized repeatedly. But understanding the dynamics doesn't mean excusing them. It means freeing yourself from repeating those patterns. I discovered I'd internalized harmful beliefs about my worth. Despite professional success, part of me still believed I didn't deserve good things, unless I earned them through exhausting effort. Meanwhile, others around me seemed entitled to whatever they wanted, simply by existing. This distortion had impacted every area of my life, from romantic relationships to friendships to workplace interactions. You apologize for needing basic consideration, my therapist pointed out. You accept crumbs of affection as though they're feasts. You believe love and respect must be continuously earned rather than freely given. Recognizing these patterns was painful but liberating. I began practicing setting boundaries in small situations, like declining additional projects at work when already at capacity, or expressing preferences about restaurant choices with friends instead of always deferring. Each tiny assertion built confidence for the next. My support network expanded in unexpected ways. Colleagues became genuine friends. Neighbors transformed into chosen family. My boss, who had supported me throughout the ordeal, became a valued mentor. These connections weren't based on obligation or shared DNA, but mutual respect and genuine care. Rachel, the cousin who had reached out in support, became a regular presence in my life. Our weekly video calls strengthened a connection that had been casual before the incident. She understood the family dynamics from insider perspective, yet validated my experience. When she visited Boston for a conference, our dinner conversation lasted until the restaurant closed around us. You know what's weird? She said, as we walked back to my condo. I think this whole awful situation might have been worth it for what you've discovered about yourself. 6 months after the settlement, I tentatively agreed to meet my parents at a neutral location, a restaurant halfway between Boston and their suburban home. My therapist and I had prepared extensively for this meeting, establishing clear boundaries and exit strategies if needed. The initial awkwardness was painful. My father, traditionally domineering, seemed diminished somehow. My mother, usually smooth with social niceties, stumbled over basic conversation. We discussed safe topics, the weather a recent sports championship, my grandmother's upcoming birthday, while avoiding the enormous elephant in the room. Finally, after our meals arrived, my father cleared his throat. "I owe you a proper apology," he said, his voice uncharacteristically uncertain. "What we did was wrong. Not just the condo situation, but how we've treated you your entire life. We placed burdens on you that no child should carry," my mother added, tears forming. "We expected you to succeed without support, while making excuses for Marcus's failures. Then we resented your success, because it highlighted our favoritism. The therapist says, I've spent a lifetime expecting you to be the parent in our relationship," my father continued. "I relied on your stability and responsibility instead of providing that for you. I took your strength for granted." These acknowledgments weren't perfect, but they represented genuine effort. More importantly, they aligned with my own therapy revelations. The path forward would be neither complete estrangement nor pretending nothing had happened, but something new. A relationship based on honest acknowledgement of the past and clear expectations for the future. I appreciate hearing that I responded carefully. I'm not ready to pretend everything is normal, but I'm willing to see if we can build something healthier moving forward. We established new parameters. We would meet monthly in public places. They would respect my boundaries about discussing Marcus. We would continue family therapy sessions. There would be no unannounced visits or expectations of financial support for anyone. Marcus's journey proved more complicated. The financial responsibility course had apparently triggered genuine introspection. He'd secured stable employment at a marketing firm and maintained his own apartment for several months. His therapist had helped him identify patterns of entitlement and manipulation that had sabotaged previous progress. We met for coffee 3 months after my initial meeting with our parents. The brother who had so casually destroyed my home seemed replaced by someone more thoughtful, more aware of consequences. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said immediately. "What I did was unforgivable. But I want you to know I'm doing the work to understand why I did it, and to make sure I never hurt anyone that way again." He showed me a notebook where he'd listed everyone he'd wronged over the years, with specific actions he'd taken to make amends where possible. He'd repaid old debts, returned borrowed items, and apologized to former roommates and friends. "I always told myself I was just taking what I deserved," he explained. "I convinced myself that things came easily to you, so you owed me. My therapist helped me see how I used that belief to justify hurting people. I'm learning to sit with discomfort instead of expecting others to fix it for me." Our relationship remained distant, but civil. I wasn't ready to trust him, but I could acknowledge his efforts to change. We occasionally exchanged texts about neutral topics, a movie he thought I'd enjoy, a restaurant I recommended near his workplace. Small, careful steps. Meanwhile, my condo continued its transformation, from crime scene back to sanctuary. Beyond the necessary repairs, I made intentional changes that reclaimed the space as uniquely mine. The new kitchen layout worked better for entertaining. The reorganized home office supported both professional work and creative projects I'd previously neglected. My vinyl collection slowly rebuilt with both replacements of lost favorites and new discoveries. Each edition represented not just music, but reclamation of something that had been stolen. Friends contributed to the collection often, with thoughtful notes about why they'd selected particular albums. The 6-month mark of the settlement brought an unexpected gesture from my parents. A check covering the remaining cost of renovations beyond the settlement amount, with a note acknowledging they understood money couldn't truly repair the damage, but hoping it might ease the practical burden. After consulting my therapist, I accepted the gesture in the spirit offered. I used part of the funds to upgrade my security system with state-of-the-art features, a practical decision that also held symbolic weight. The remaining amount went toward a 2-week solo trip to Japan, visiting places I'd only glimpsed during business trips, and fulfilling a long-held dream. The trip proved transformative, providing physical distance to reflect on emotional progress. In Kyoto's peaceful gardens, I realized I no longer defined myself primarily through family trauma. The betrayal had shaped, but not determined, my path forward. I returned with a renewed sense of autonomy and possibility. By the 1-year anniversary of my return from Singapore, my home and life had been rebuilt stronger than before. The family that had betrayed me was still present, but in a carefully managed capacity. New relationships had deepened. Professional success continued with a promotion recognizing my Singapore project achievements. Most importantly, I had discovered an unshakable trust in myself. The person who had methodically reclaimed his home, established boundaries, and rebuilt a life on his own terms couldn't be manipulated or diminished by others' expectations. That confidence permeated every aspect of my life. The ultimate lesson wasn't about property rights or family dynamics, though those were important. The real revelation was that we can choose our responses to betrayal. We can emerge from trauma, not just healing the immediate wounds, but fundamentally stronger, wiser, and more authentically ourselves. I sometimes look around my restored and improved condo and feel a surprising gratitude for the painful journey. Not because the betrayal was justified, it never will be, but because overcoming it revealed strengths I might never have discovered otherwise. The home I fought for has become not just a physical space, but a testament to resilience. Family is important, but it's not a blank check for mistreatment. True family, whether biological or chosen, supports your growth, respects your boundaries, and celebrates your success without demanding sacrifice in return. Building that kind of family, biological or chosen, remains life's most important work. Have you ever had to stand up to family who took advantage of your kindness? What boundaries have you created to protect yourself while maintaining relationships? Let me know in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories about overcoming family challenges. And remember, blood makes you related, but respect and love make you family. Thank you for listening to my journey, and may you find the courage to protect what matters most in your own life.